Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rhythm Guys. We're so excited that you're sticking with us and following along with us. We love that. That was the whole purpose of this, is to get to share with people, young and old, young and new, on your musical journey, just what we're learning, and we're enjoying getting your feedback on this also. So this time I was so excited about this. This episode is how to have a good time.
Yeah! Finally!
Yeah. Hang on. Oh, how to develop good time. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I gotta change my notes. Listen, we're gonna go to break
It's gonna be a very
here.
different episode now.
Yeah, so I gotta change this up.
No, don't come on. Don't come on.
Send him back. Send him back to the bus. Champagne goes back. Okay, so I gotta change my notes then. This is how to develop good time. That's a little more on the music thing. Yeah? Okay.
Not as fun, but...
Not as fun, but listen, we're gonna go to a break here, and we'll be right back with the actual right topic. All right, so we cleaned up our notes and got everything squared away, sent the bus back with everyone. So we're on topic now, how to develop good time. If you've been following along in our episodes, this has come up already, the importance of good time or whatnot. And what we want to share is just how do you develop that? We can tell you why you need to have it and all that, but we want to kind of walk you through our experience with this on that. And so, one of the obvious questions might be, why is having good time important? Let's just play and have a good time and have fun. Drummers, it's great to bang on things and make noise and whatnot. But I promise you, depending on where you had in your end up in your music, whether you are going into a studio or whatnot, it's going to be demanded of you. And this came up in a previous episode as one of my questions in here. In a band, who should be the keeper of the time? And Ron had the right answer in one of the episodes. Everybody. Everybody should have it. Now, we know that, everyone will look at the drummer typically, and of course, drummers know how to rush and drag or whatnot. But it really is the responsibility of everyone to have good time. And so we want to help you kind of get through that and give you some advice on what to do with that. One thing right now in modern music, not so much in jazz. Now, I end up playing at churches and some pop stuff and whatnot. And right now, all around in some of the churches that we're playing at, they're playing with tracks and they're playing with a click. And if they're not playing with tracks and you're in ears, then sometimes there is a click. And I'm playing at two churches right now where one of them has tracks with the click and cues in there, and the other just has a click, and you're reading along the music.
Could you explain what a click is?
Yes. Thank you, Ron. It's a click, kind of just the lingo for this. It's basically a metronome beeping in your ears. And at some point, someone will count it off, maybe the drummer, maybe someone else, but you're hearing that throughout the tune, okay? And if there are tracks going along with it, it just means they've pre-recorded some tracks, and there's a click in there, and sometimes you will have someone cueing in there also, chorus, 2, 3, 4, verse 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's always that beep, and that's what we mean by a click, okay? So it's that pulse, and so the more comfortable you are with the metronome in your own practice, the easier that will be, okay? Now, the sessions that we do at Studio 770, we don't have a click. We've got to have good time. So that's where we're headed. When the click is not there, and by the way, let me say, unless you practice with the click, it will be your enemy. Okay, and it will feel that way. So in other words, don't just say, hey, they're going to have a click, so I don't have to worry about my time. It will be the most frustrating thing ever. So you have to have had practice with your metronome to be comfortable with that pulse in your ears during a performance, okay? Yeah. So my point is, you want to have good time so that you can play along well with the click. And when the click is not there, you are the timekeeper, every one of us. But particularly if you are the drummer, because we can really take a band down with us or up. And if it's a vocalist, any instrumentalist, but with a vocalist too, when you've kicked it off too quickly and they're gasping for air to kick out lyrics or whatnot, or an instrumentalist that has to breathe to get their runs going. So you're going to need to know this. in time, and it will make you, of course, people will know, hey, that drummer, that musician has great time or doesn't have great time, and that might mean a gig or not for you. So just be aware of that. So it's everyone's responsibility. And how do you get good time? Well, you need that metronome. We've talked about that in the previous episode. Invest in yourself. Some you can get a free app on the different platforms, but get a metronome. Some are more elaborate, and we talked about those earlier, so we won't rehash that so much unless you have some examples on that. But get one. You need one. You absolutely need one to practice. And so find one wherever you are. It's an app or whatnot, and you're going to need a whole lot of patience. I swear, when the first time I was playing with a metronome, I would put money down. I didn't have money, but I'd put money down that someone was screwing with the time.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It's a pulse you hit play, but it feels like it's moving. It's one of the most frustrating things. And I had a band director that in big band in college, I'm going to keep names out, but
you know who you are.
you know who you are. He would not only grab a drumstick and just come up to your drum music stand and be hitting it, but he would go around and get your own drumstick out of your own band. And so, and just hitting it right there. And of course, you don't want that to happen to you. But, you have hopefully not as bad experiences as that. But, if you practice with a metronome, you can offset some of that craziness. But certainly it feels like you are fighting against something that's wavering. It's not it. It's you. Yeah. And I'm going to leave with this term before we shoot off to the guys, because I'd love to hear your experiences with that. But there's something known as burying the click. And when you bury the click, you're playing and you are so on top of it that it disappears for a moment. Because your kick and your snare are landing right on it. Now, that's beautiful. I wouldn't make that your goal throughout the whole thing because we don't want to sound machine-like or whatnot, but you can tell when you're way off of it. But when you're right on, it feels like it's just another instrument that's there with you, and you can make it work for you. But it's a crucial piece to your musicianship is to have great time. And so I want to know, Ron, let's kick off with you. What are your thoughts about time, experiences with that? Train wrecks or not?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in the studio because, as you mentioned, Isaac, the click, many times a click is required in the studio because there's overlay of other instruments. Yeah. What we do in the studio a lot of times, we might record like 2 or 3 instruments at a time, and then at another date, another musician may come in and put on their part. Yeah. And that's kind of typical of studio recording these days. And so a click is required so that everybody has a standard pulse that's going through the whole tune. So if you can't play to a click, and meaning you don't have good time, then you're unable to do those sessions and unemployable. So really important. As a pianist, there's 2 things that I think, outside of the big picture of having to play with a band, which is actually the most important. But as a solo pianist, if you're accompanying somebody and you don't have good time, it's going to be a train wreck because the vocalist is going to be here and you're going to be back here. So even as a solo pianist without drums and bass, you should be able to have really good time as you're accompanying somebody else in a duo or even a trio situation. Also, there are points in music where the entire rhythm section will stop playing and the piano's there alone holding like maybe 2 bars of just a piano break. That piano break better be in time, or else when everybody else comes back in, you won't make it there with them. So that's the reason, primarily for pianists having good time, is to, on their own, be able to hear that pulse and stay right where that pulse is steadily, without even having to depend on a drummer or a bass player to provide that. And of course, as I mentioned before, the bigger picture is playing with the band. You're not able to groove with the band if you don't have that constant time that everybody else has. So metronome practice is imperative.
Yeah. So using a metronome, of course, like we've all been saying, it's incredibly important to your playing. As a bass player, it rules your life, and because you're the heartbeat of the band, like. That the harmonic structure, you're taking care of the bottom end, but especially in jazz, you're playing every quarter note. You are outlining it for everybody. Sure, drums are doing all kinds of fancy ornamentation around that. They're all playing around the pulse that you're creating as a bass player most often in jazz. So being exactly where you need to be rhythmically is super important as a bass player, because everyone's using that heartbeat to play off of to make the rhythm more interesting in relation to the time that's there. So when I practice, the thing is on all the time. Back when I used to have an old Tama, which is kind of like a Dr. Beat, where you could dial in the different subdivisions and all that kind of stuff, so you could get really exact. I burned through batteries on that like nobody's business. Good. It was on all the time. And now with phones, like, they never die. It's great. So you can play for hours and you don't have to worry about it. I'd never heard it called, what you said, varying
the beat.
Yeah, I'd never heard it called that, but I was going to talk about that, because that's
good.
like, for me, when that happens, like, that's my zen.
Yeah.
When I'm practicing and I finally get to that point where I don't hear it anymore, it becomes so natural and comfortable. Like, finding that place. That's like that for me as a bass player. Getting to that point when you're practicing, it just feels so good to me. Yeah. A tip for using a metronome that I really that I learned way back when, and has really helped me with swing feel, is instead of playing with the click on every 4 beats as a bass player especially, have your click on 2 and 4. Mm-hmm. So you're emulating the hi-hat. So if the drummer has done his job of learning when to play on 2 and 4 with the hi-hat, you're practicing with that beat as a bass player and emphasizing those beats along with him, thereby making whoever you're playing with as a drummer very, very happy with you. And if you can lock in like that, if you really accent those beats, it adds to the swing. That's one of those things we talked about, Count Basie. That's one of those things that they did in that band to make that swing feel so good, is that emphasis on 2 and 4. And getting used to knowing where that is at all times is a real important way of using your metronome to help generate good time.
Yeah. Can I say one thing as a soloist? Because as a pianist, many times I'm taking a solo, so I'm almost leaving the realm of an accompanist. It's a rhythm section. And I have to say, as a soloist, if I'm playing with a drummer or a bass player that doesn't have good time, my solos sound horrible. Because one of the things you do in jazz when you're soloing is trying to solo within the groove. Trying to let your solo groove, the lines of your solo groove. And you can't let the lines of your solo groove if the time is all over the place. There has to be that consistency for the soloist to groove with the rhythm section. So it is, as a soloist too, it's hugely important for my fellow rhythm section players to have great time.
That's a great point, because I remember when I played with the horn player, this is way early on, that was playing behind the beat. And I started following him.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, no, if your time is straight, he feels comfortable, she feels comfortable doing that.
Right.
When you follow them, you mess things up. So it was a lesson. It's a style thing. It's a feel thing. Right. So play along with your click. Get to know your click. By the way, we were at a meeting quickly when Shanti mentioned there was a group in here with vocalists and band, and they turned on the click for the band. It was a meeting. The band could not stick to the click. The vocalists were great, and that's money on the line now. Yeah. And so it's important. It's important. So, okay, well, listen, if there's something that we didn't cover here in terms of keeping good time, how to keep good time, what you should or shouldn't do, please, Sam, let us know how to contact us.
Contact us, info@therhythmguys.com, or just go to rhythmguys.com and you can get a hold of us there.
Great. Okay, we're going to toss out here in just a minute, and then we're going to come back with our picks. We don't have picks for this episode, so we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to our picks of the week. I'm loving this section. Get to learn a lot and share a lot. So I will go first. I am going to recommend an app called Live BPM Beat Detector, and it looks something like this, but it's Live BPM. What's cool about this is you turn this thing on and you start playing, and it starts telling you your tempo. So let's say you have a 4-click, click, 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 start playing, but then the metronome's off, and this thing, you can see it on the screen, starts showing your time on the line. If you go fast, it goes up, and you go slow, it goes down from where it's at, and you can really see where it's really magical. You can just see how well you're playing consistently And so it's a great thing to find out how comfortable you are at different tempos.
You've used it in the
I
studio
use
here.
this, absolutely.
He uses this on recording
Yeah,
gigs. So
yeah.
it's a useful tool.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's exactly right. Ron.
My pick is the Zoom. You've probably seen it as a audio recorder, but my understanding now is it's actually video too. So, and the reason for the Zoom, in fact, it's the Q2N Zoom Q2N.
I have that one too.
Great. And the reason for at least this episode that we're talking about time, I think it's important to record yourself playing, listen back or watch back to see what your time's like. Because a lot of times it takes kind of a third party to really notice how things are happening. So it's a great, objective source to kind of tape what you're doing when you're performing and then listen back and see how your time is. And with the video function, you can also check out your technique and, what you're doing pianistically. So really highly recommend it.
Very nice.
And I'm going to piggyback on that. As session guys, we have a real strong relationship with what we record immediately.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of time to reflect on how painful it is to listen to yourself playing. And that's one of the biggest fears, I think, of a lot of players is like,
that's true.
I don't want to hear it, I'm going to sound terrible. But that's the only way you can get better.
Yeah.
Just get past that fear right away. The more you record yourself, the more you listen, the better. And the tool that will let you hear yourself, whatever it is super important, and just getting past it. And like I said, when we're in here, some of the most painful nights of my life are after this, and I go home and I can't believe I did that. So anyway, you'll survive. We've survived.
Yep.
We've been doing it for a long time. You'll survive too. Okay, so I guess now that I've talked, now it's my pick. So my pick is unfortunately iOS only. Again, sorry, I'm an Apple guy. But it's called Time Guru, and it's an awesome app. The logo, because I think there's a couple that look kind of the same, but the logo is a red and white yin yang symbol, and instead of the little dots, it's like a rest and a quarter note. So you'll see it. It's really obvious. It was created by, I have to look because I keep forgetting his name, Avi Bortnick, which was a guy who worked with John Scofield. He's a guitarist as well. But what's unique about this is it's basically a metronome app. But what's special about it is it has a random dropout feature. So you can practice your time and you can set a percentage on when the click will disappear for a little while, randomly, not just in beat one, not just in the middle of a measure. It just goes gone.
Yeah,
and then
cool.
it pops back in. So you just, for a bass player, you go boom, 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 and you're waiting, and then it disappears. And if you come back in and you're with it, you're golden. And if you're not, you suck and practice more, right? But it's so great. It's such a great tool. It's awesome. I'm using it constantly now. It's really great. And I think it's great for students too, though I start them with no randomization because I want them to know what a solid metronome works like first before they get used to it dropping out. Like, what? How am I supposed to rely on this? So anyway, great. It's Time Guru. I think it's $4. Again, worth every penny.
Yeah.
So that's my pick.
Great. Well, listen, again, thanks for hanging out with us. This went from what we thought was how to have a good time to how to
We did
develop
have a good time.
But we did have a good time. So we covered all of it.
I think so.
So thanks for hanging in there. We're looking forward to bringing more episodes to you. We're working hard on that. And Sam, let them know how to reach out to us.
Again, you can find us at therhythmguys.com. If you want to directly contact us, that's info@therhythmguys.com. And all the links for everything else is going to be there on the page.
All right, folks. Thanks again for spending time with us. We look forward to your comments. Email us, and because we're going to have that episode coming up where we will answer your questions. And that will be what the whole episode is about you. So we look forward to hearing from you. Take care. We'll see you again soon.